Can I sustain strict carnivore indefinitely? That's a great question, and I hear it asked many times. It depends who you ask. And are they right? Because for everybody that says, yes, you can, other people say, no, you can't. The one thing we don't have is extensive studies and testing with scores of people that have been carnivore for decades. We do not have long-term data. If you can't sustain carnivore, strict carnivore, I'm talking 0 carbs, 0 plants, like I had for over 2.5 years. When do you reach the point where you've got to make a change, or certain things start to basically go downhill? We don't want to believe that. We want to believe Sean Baker. We want to believe Anthony Chafee. Ken Berry is a little more moderate. Robert Kiltz is also not that strict. So which one of these doctors, who really are our best shot at getting good information, which one of them do we listen to? And then we have to factor in, we're all individuals, and what works for them may not work for us. Where does that leave us? Well, confused, alone, directionless, maybe, but each of us pretty much has to figure this out for ourselves. I've come to that point. I've gotten to the point where I believe that you have to, for want of a better word, carb cycle. I don't want to believe that. But our physiology has evolved over eons of time with humans because of feast and famine, successful hunts that failed, has had us having to switch back and forth between the two sources of energy that we use: carbohydrates and fat. This is built into our physiology, and the reason why we have all of the machinery and the pathways to use one or the other, maybe even both simultaneously. It's very complicated. Vegans, it's a movement, it's a religion. It seems many of them have not eaten any meat for years, for periods of time as long as we carnivores claim we've only eaten meat, and they seem to do just fine. But the magic number seems to be 3, 4, or 5 years, and then their health goes to hell. People say it's because so many of those, let's call them trace nutrients, we can store a year's worth in our body, and when you go so long without essential amino acids, without essential vitamins, things that the body must have, you start to deteriorate. And most vegans, after 5 years, are very sick. And we see all these, I was a vegan for 5 years and now I'm a carnivore videos. For me, I think there's a point with either extreme that your body adapts in ways that rob you of things you need to support other things, and you deteriorate. And I think by not exercising both of the pathways, both the lipolysis and the glycolysis pathways, eventually we'll run out of something, or something will get glommed up from just lack of use, and we'll suffer. Maybe not everybody. Everybody's a little different. I can only talk about what's happening to me. And it wasn't a stroke so much because I began to notice before the stroke subtle changes in my energy levels and the way I felt after more than 2.5 years of not a gram of sugar. Then I had the stroke. Everybody wants to blame it on carnivore. Quite possibly. That might have had something to do with it. There may have been a lot of things going on. Having not flexed to carbs or added some carbs before that. So many people, the basis of all their advice is this, what they call carb cycling. It makes sense in some respects because that's how our ancestors did it. Very few of our ancestors went long periods of time without carbs. They ate carbs when those sources of carbs were in season, usually before cold winters. The body did what it was supposed to do. It turned those carbs into fat, and the fat sustained him through a fast or a long cold winter, or hibernation in some animals. This is part of who we are. Becoming more and more convinced that we need to consider this hybrid way of life. The problem that I've always had is the addiction. Addiction was a good thing where there wasn't a lot around of what you were addicted to. It meant when you found it, you gorged on it. We've changed the playing field with a 7-Eleven on every corner, unlimited carbohydrates, and our addictions have run wild. For us addicts, the only way to control ourselves basically was to stay pure carnivore. That's the problem, that's the conundrum. A small amount of carbohydrates will not hurt us. A keto diet is good for you. Cycling, fasting, all these things that mimic the ancient and prehistoric ways of life for animals will not hurt us. We're equipped for that. We evolved to handle that. Then you have the pride part of it. Especially for me, I'm old guy carnivore. I'm a carnivore. I prided myself. I have not eaten a carb in 2.5 years. It was a badge of honor, like an alcoholic. Like an alcoholic has a chip. It's not the same. I have to start changing some things because I really believe those scientists who say, and those people that I listen to who say, and this is the key, basically it's about not having enough insulin. There are so many things that require insulin to trigger them. So many functions we need in our body other than just regulating blood sugar. I believe that as you stay carb-free longer and longer, your body ramps up the gluconeogenesis. But that doesn't spike your blood sugar enough to trigger your pancreas. And what happens is your pancreas starts to be like an old car that gets parked and you haven't started it for 2 or 3 years. But you need the insulin. I believe that. Now, unfortunately, we have CGMs to measure our blood sugar. Yay. We can take home A1C tests. Right on. We can measure ketones. Right on. What we can't keep track of is how much insulin we have in our system. We would have to get fasting insulin tests or C-peptide tests done every day, twice a day, 3 times a day. Nobody can do that. I can't do that. So until they come up with a meter that you can put a thing on there and monitor your insulin levels, we have to go by all the clues that we have. And my clue is just how I feel, how sharp I feel, and how much energy that I have. So I've got to make some changes. This is the first video talking about the reasons why. Experimenting is like doing a study. Can't change 10 things at once and expect to know what was the one thing you changed that was helpful. So I have to start experimenting. There are so many things. There's coffee and caffeine. Maybe that's doing it. There's no carbs. Maybe I should become keto. That's fine. What carbs should I eat? Plants are trying to kill me. I'm addicted to things like blueberries. Can I control the addiction? Maybe. Maybe I need to eat the blueberries before I eat my meal and then stuff myself so I don't want any more, because if I just eat the blueberries for dessert, that dessert will last until the blueberries are gone. These are all things. There's so many factors. So I've started. I started yesterday. Do I know where I'm going? I have to take this one day at a time? No. If you've been on carnivore, I think less than 2 years, I don't think you need to worry about this. But when you start to get up to the point where you're at your weight, your BMI is down, your cholesterol has gone up, sometimes skyrocketed, I think that would be the time to evaluate whether you should continue to be that strict, or you should find, and I'll call them healthy carbohydrates because most of them aren't, and introduce some back in and learn or try to figure out how to handle them, because you know you're an addict. Starting yesterday, I cut out caffeine and I diluted decaf coffee down, and I had 2 cups of it yesterday, but it was really only 1 cup of coffee. I felt it, but I can't know until I go a few days. I'm doing the same thing this morning. I'll talk about this. I'll let you know what my experiments are. But in the meantime, I'm still eating strict carnivore. But very shortly, I'm going to try to introduce somehow 1 cup of blueberries a day. 1 cup of blueberries has 19 grams of carb, but most of it's fiber. But that's okay. The net carbs in blueberries are very low, but we don't talk about that. I'm just going to go and consider all the carbs in it, whether I can digest them or not, as carbs. I'm going to have to find a place to inject the blueberries into my intermittent fasting and eating schedule where they're not the last thing I eat, but perhaps the first, so that I can continue to eat instead of giving in to the cravings to keep going back and getting more blueberries. Once I make the change in the coffee, and I've added the 19 grams of carbs from a cup of blueberries, and I may make ice cream with those blueberries and use half and half instead of cream to keep the calorie count down a little bit. I'll see. But either way, going to limit the amount of carbs each day. Try to keep it under 20. See what happens to me. Do I gain weight? Do I lose weight? Do I stay the same? Does my energy level pick up? Do I start to feel less brain fog, get the mental clarity back for the whole day instead of just certain times of the day? We'll see. That's what I'm going to do. That's the start. I'll let you know. It basically involves 2 things right now. Getting caffeine out of me, still drinking some coffee, making sure I take my electrolytes, fish oil, vitamin D3, and continue to try recovering from my stroke. I know I've gone over a lot. I tried to let you in on my thinking, and maybe my thinking is still all over the place. We'll see. I'll let you know what happens. But for now, take the rest of the day off and eat meat.